For 42 years, I believed I was the glue holding our family together. Then, one text message changed everything. "We think it's best if you skip Thanksgiving this year," my daughter-in-law wrote. "The kids are overwhelmed with too many people." Funny how I wasn't too many people when I was making their monthly car payments. I said nothing. I smiled through our weekly Sunday dinner. But inside, I was adding up decades of receipts, and when the time came, I didn't need harsh words. I just needed to stop pretending. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to finally acknowledge when you're not wanted. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Mabel Thornfield. I'm 73 years old, a grandmother to 4 wonderful children, and until recently, I thought my greatest accomplishment was maintaining peace in our family. I spent my entire adult life believing that sacrifice was the highest form of love. How wrong I was. The morning it all began was deceptively ordinary. October sunlight streamed through my kitchen curtains as I kneaded dough for cinnamon rolls, my arthritis flaring despite the compression gloves Dr. Renfield had recommended. My son Nathan's family always came for Sunday brunch, a tradition I'd maintained since his father passed 12 years ago. The house still felt too large without Richard, but these weekly gatherings filled the emptiness, or so I told myself. As I worked the dough, my phone chimed. It was my daughter-in-law, Vanessa, asking if I could pick up my grandson Oliver from soccer practice that afternoon. His sister had a dance recital, and they couldn't manage both. "Of course," I replied. Immediately. I didn't mention the physical therapy appointment I'd have to reschedule. Family comes first. That's what I'd always believed. The kitchen timer rang just as I heard tires on the gravel driveway. I pulled the rolls from the oven, the cinnamon sugar aroma filling the kitchen as Nathan's SUV door slammed. The door opened, and my grandchildren tumbled in. Oliver, 11, already as tall as my shoulder. Lily, 9, clutching her latest art project. The twins, Emma and Jacob, 6, immediately racing toward the cookie jar I always kept filled. "Grandma!" Lily thrust a painting toward me. "I made this for your fridge." "It's beautiful, sweetheart," I said, taking the watercolor forest scene. Every inch of my refrigerator was covered in their artwork, layered like archaeological strata of their childhoods. Nathan followed, looking exhausted. Corporate law was demanding, but lately I'd noticed a different kind of weariness in him, something heavier, something familiar. It reminded me of his father in those final years. Vanessa entered last, scrolling through her phone, designer sunglasses pushed up on her highlighted blonde hair. "Something smells amazing," Nathan said, kissing my cheek. "Cinnamon rolls," I replied. "And I made that egg casserole you loved as a boy." "You spoil us, Mabel," Vanessa said, finally putting her phone away. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. It never did. "Though I've been telling Nathan we should really cut back on carbs." I nodded and said nothing, the way I always did. Peace at any price. Wasn't that my motto? I'd been swallowing my words for so long, I sometimes wondered if I even had a voice left. Brunch proceeded as usual. I served. I smiled. I listened. Nathan talked about his work stress. Vanessa described her charity committee drama. The children chattered about school and friends. I asked questions, offered encouragement. No one asked about my week or how my hip was feeling after the fall. I'd taken last month. I didn't expect them to. When had they ever? As they prepared to leave, Nathan hung back in the kitchen while Vanessa herded the children to the car. "Mom, I need a favor," he said, lowering his voice. "We're a little tight this month. The private school tuition went up, and Vanessa's planning that fundraiser." I knew what was coming. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. "How much do you need?" I asked. He looked relieved. Just to cover the car payments. Both cars. It's temporary, I promise. By temporary, he meant I'd be covering their 2 luxury vehicle payments for the foreseeable future, just as I had been doing for the past 8 months. Just as I paid for the children's swimming lessons, piano classes, and summer camps. Just as I had put the down payment on their house 5 years ago, a loan that was never mentioned again. Of course, I said. What else could I say? They were family. He hugged me, already texting someone as he walked out. I watched from the porch as they drove away, the children's faces illuminated by iPad screens, not one of them turning to wave. Goodbye. Back inside, I gathered the plates they'd left scattered across the dining room. The house fell into silence, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock Richard had lovingly restored before cancer took him. I ran my fingers over its mahogany face, remembering how his hands, strong, capable hands, had rebuilt it piece by piece. "What would you say about all this, Richard?" I whispered. The clock ticked on, unanswering. Later that afternoon, I picked up Oliver from soccer practice, my hip protesting as I climbed out of my 10-year-old sedan. He tossed his gear in the back seat and immediately put in his earbuds, disappearing into his digital world. "How was practice?" I asked anyway. He shrugged, eyes on his phone. "Fine. Are you hungry? We could stop for ice cream." Another shrug. "Nah. Mom says dairy makes me break out." We drove in silence. When we arrived at their house, the colonial with the professionally landscaped yard that my retirement fund had helped secure, Vanessa was waiting at the door. "Thanks, Mabel," she said as Oliver brushed past her inside. "Could you drop off Lily's costume at the dry cleaners tomorrow? It needs to be ready for the recital next weekend." "Of course," I said. "Great." She was already turning away. "Oh, and we'll need you to watch the twins Thursday evening. Board meeting." "Not a question, never a question." "I'll be there," I said to her, retreating back. Driving home, I passed the retirement community where my bridge club friends lived, modern apartments with balconies overlooking gardens, weekly outings to theaters and museums, a community of peers who valued each other's company. I'd received their brochures for years, but always set them aside. My family needed me, didn't they? The following Tuesday, I was deadheading roses in my garden when my phone chimed with a text from Vanessa. I wiped my hands on my gardening apron and squinted at the screen. "We think it's best if you skip Thanksgiving this year. The kids are overwhelmed with too many people. We'll do Christmas instead." I read it 3 times, my hands growing cold despite the autumn sun. Thanksgiving was my holiday. Had been since Richard died. I cooked for days. The turkey, the stuffing, the 5 different sides that everyone loved, the homemade pies. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. My china, my grandmother's silver, my tablecloth, my home. But this year, I was too many people. I started to type several responses, deleting each one. What could I say? That I was hurt? That after 4 decades of motherhood and 12 years of widowhood, being excluded from a family holiday felt like a knife between my ribs? That I'd spent the previous Thanksgiving cooking for 14 hours while Vanessa posted Instagram photos taking credit for my work? In the end, I simply wrote, "I understand." Because I did. Finally, I understood. I set down my phone and looked around my garden. Richard and I had planted these roses together when Nathan was just a toddler. Now they needed pruning, nourishing, care just as I did. How long had it been since I'd cared for myself with the same attention I lavished on everyone else? Inside, I made a cup of tea and sat at my kitchen table with a notepad. I began to write, listing everything I paid for in Nathan and Vanessa's lives. Monthly car payments for 2 vehicles, $1,850, children's activities. approximately $2,300 per month. Emergency cash infusions, average of $3,000 per month. Property tax on their house, $12,000 annually. Family cell phone plan, $390 monthly. Various credit card payments, fluctuating, but at least $1,000 monthly. The total made me dizzy. I was spending nearly all of my retirement income and steadily depleting my savings. For what? To be told I was too many people? I put down my pen and walked to the living room, where photographs chronicled our family history. Nathan's graduation, his wedding to Vanessa, the grandchildren's births and birthdays. In most recent photos, I was at the edges, the gray-haired woman holding the coats, minding the babies, standing apart while Nathan, Vanessa, and the children formed the center. When had I become peripheral in my own life? That evening, my oldest friend Eleanor called. We'd been inseparable since college, until her move to Arizona 5 years ago to be near her daughter, a daughter who actually wanted her presence. "You sound off," Eleanor said after a few minutes of conversation. "What's wrong?" I rarely burdened others with my troubles, but Eleanor had always seen through me. "Vanessa doesn't want me at Thanksgiving," I said, my voice cracking despite my best efforts. "That self-centered little—" Eleanor cut herself off. "I'm sorry, Mabel. That's cruel." "It's fine," I said automatically. "They're busy. The children have so many activities." "Stop it," Eleanor said firmly. "Stop making excuses for them. You've been doing it for years, and what has it gotten you?" Her words hit like cold water. "What choice do I have?" "Every choice in the world. Mabel, do you remember who you were before you became Nathan's personal ATM and Vanessa's unpaid nanny? You were going to write that cookbook. You were planning to visit all the national parks. You talked about teaching cooking classes." I gazed at the travel books gathering dust on my shelf. Yosemite, the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone. Places Richard and I had planned to visit in our retirement, plans derailed by his illness and then forgotten in the wake of his death as I folded myself ever more tightly into my children's lives. "I remember," I said softly. "It's not too late," Eleanor said. "I know you love those grandkids, but you deserve a life of your own." After we hung up, I sat in the growing darkness, thinking about choices, about voices, about what it meant to be seen, truly seen, by the people you love. Sunday brunch came again. I made the usual feast, set the usual table. But something had shifted inside me. I watched with new eyes as Nathan and Vanessa arrived, the children immediately scattering to claim their favorite spots in my home. I noticed how Vanessa inspected my furniture for dust, how Nathan checked his watch repeatedly during the meal, how no one remarked on the blueberry muffins I'd woken at dawn to bake. Lily's favorite. "Thanks for grabbing those car payments." "Mom," Nathan said as they prepared to leave, "I transferred the insurance money to your account, but if you could handle the actual payments again this month, that would be great." I nodded, saying nothing, feeling a new sensation unfurling in my chest. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something calmer, clearer, certainty. After they left, I didn't immediately clean up their mess as usual. Instead, I drove to the retirement community I'd passed so many times. Sunrise Meadows. I'd called ahead, and a friendly woman named Patricia was waiting to show me around. "We have several floor plans available," she explained, as we toured a sunny one-bedroom apartment. "This one has a lovely view of the gardens." The apartment was small but beautifully designed. The kitchen was modern, with enough space for baking. The living room had built-in bookshelves. The bedroom was cozy, with large windows overlooking a courtyard where residents sat chatting in the autumn sunshine. "What activities do you offer?" I asked. Patricia's face lit up. "We have a wonderful culinary club. Several residents are former professional chefs. They host cooking classes twice weekly." My heart quickened. And travel opportunities? Monthly excursions to cultural sites, and twice yearly we organize larger trips. This spring we're going to Yellowstone. Yellowstone, the first park on Richard's and my list. As we finished the tour, Patricia handed me a brochure. Take your time deciding. It's a big change. Actually, I said, surprising myself with my certainty, I'd like to discuss the application process today. 2 hours later, I left with preliminary paperwork completed and a date to return for the financial discussion. As I drove home, I felt lighter than I had in years. I wasn't just Richard's widow, or Nathan's mother, or the grandchildren's grandmother. I was Mabel Thornfield, and for the first time in decades, I was choosing myself. The next day, I visited my financial advisor. Howard had managed my investments since Richard's passing, always with conservative caution. I need to make some changes, I told him. Howard adjusted his glasses. What sort of changes? I want to stop all automatic payments to my son's accounts. Car loans, credit cards, cell phones, everything. And I need to understand exactly what my monthly income will be if I move to Sunrise Meadows. His eyebrows rose, but to his credit, he asked no personal questions. Let's take a look at your portfolio. The numbers were sobering. If I continued subsidizing Nathan and Vanessa's lifestyle, I'd deplete my savings within 5 years. If I stopped, I could live comfortably at Sunrise Meadows for the rest of my life, with enough left for occasional travel and gifts for the grandchildren. I think you know what the prudent choice is, Howard said gently. I did. That evening, I made a series of phone calls to various financial institutions, removing myself as the payment source for Nathan's cars, credit cards, and other expenses. No drama, no accusations, just quiet, methodical disentanglement. Then I began to sort through my possessions. My house, too large for one person, contained a lifetime of accumulation. Some things I would take to my new, smaller home. Some I would sell. Some I would give away. Some, like the family photographs where I stood at the margins, I simply placed in boxes for Nathan to deal with. The process was both painful and liberating. Each object held memories, but in letting them go, I felt myself emerging, like a butterfly from a chrysalis. For the next 2 weeks, I said nothing to Nathan about my plans. I attended Oliver's soccer games and Lily's dance classes. I babysit the twins. I picked up dry cleaning. I smiled and nodded when Vanessa complained about her committee work. I pretended nothing had changed, but everything had. The Monday before Thanksgiving, Nathan called in a panic. "Mom, there's some mistake with the car payments," he said, his voice tight. "The bank says they're past due, but I know you handle those." "There's no mistake," I said calmly. A pause. "What do you mean?" "I'm no longer making your car payments, Nathan, or any other payments." Another, longer pause. "Is this about Thanksgiving?" Vanessa just thought, "This isn't about Thanksgiving," I interrupted. "This is about me making some changes in my life." "What kind of changes?" His voice had taken on the condescending tone he used when he thought I was being difficult. "Mom, if you're having money troubles, you should have said something. We could cut back on some of the kids' activities." "I'm not having money troubles," I said. "I'm simply choosing to spend my money differently from now on myself." "On yourself?" He sounded genuinely confused, as if the concept of me having needs or desires of my own was foreign to him. Perhaps it was. I'd spent so long erasing myself, how could I expect him to see me? "Yes, Nathan, on myself. I'm moving to Sunrise Meadows next month." "The retirement home?" "Mom, you can't be serious. Those places are depressing. You'd be surrounded by old people." I couldn't help laughing. "I am an old person, Nathan." "You know what I mean. You're not that kind of old. You're active. You help with the kids. There it was. His concern wasn't for my happiness, but for what he would lose: my free childcare, my financial support, my constant availability. "I'll still see the children," I said. "But I'm 73 years old. It's time I lived what remains of my life for myself." There was silence, then an explosion. "This is unbelievable. We depend on you. The car payments, the kids' lessons. How are we supposed to manage? Vanessa would have to cut back on her volunteer work to drive the kids around. I'd have to take time off work." I let him rage, his words washing over me without penetrating. When he finally ran out of steam, I said quietly, "I'm sorry you're upset. I've left dinner in the freezer for you to heat up on Wednesday. The children like the macaroni and cheese best." "Mom, wait!" I hung up, my hands trembling but my heart steady. It was done. The next day, Vanessa appeared at my door, her perfect features arranged in a sympathetic expression that didn't reach her eyes. "Mabel, can we talk? Nathan told me about your situation." I gestured her inside. The living room was half-packed. Books in boxes, empty spaces on the walls where art had hung. "You're really going through with this?" Vanessa asked, surveying the boxes. "I am." She sat primly on the edge of the sofa. "Look, I know you're upset about Thanksgiving. I should have been more sensitive. Of course you're welcome to join us. We'll set an extra place." "This isn't about Thanksgiving, Vanessa, though I appreciate your reconsideration." Her smile tightened. "Then what is it about? Nathan says you've cut us off financially. Do you have any idea what position that puts us in? The children have commitments, expectations." "Yes," I said. "Children do have expectations. They expect to be the center of the universe. It's a parent's job to teach them otherwise." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I've failed Nathan as a mother by allowing him to believe his comfort should come at the expense of my well-being. That's a mistake I don't intend to continue making." She stood abruptly. "I knew it. You're punishing us because we wanted one holiday to ourselves. That's so petty." I shook my head, feeling strangely calm in the face of her anger. "I'm not punishing anyone. I'm simply changing the terms of our relationship to something more balanced, more honest." "Honest?" She laughed bitterly. "Okay, let's be honest. You're a lonely old woman who's been smothering us because you have nothing else in your life. You use money to control us because you know we wouldn't choose to spend this much time with you otherwise." Her words were meant to wound, and they did. But beneath the pain, I felt something else: relief. At last, the pretense was gone. The polite fiction we'd all maintained, that we were a close, loving family, had been exposed for the lie it was. "Thank you for your honesty," I said quietly. "Now I'll share mine. I've spent 12 years since Richard died trying to fill the emptiness with your family. I've given everything: my time, my money, my home, my energy, and I've received very little in return." Vanessa's face flushed. "That's not true. We've included you in what? Sunday brunches where no one asks about my life? Holidays where I do all the work while you take the credit? Last-minute childcare requests that disregard my plans? That's not inclusion, Vanessa. That's exploitation." She stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. Perhaps she was. "The children love you," she said finally, her voice smaller. "I know they do," I replied. "And I love them. That won't change. But how they love me, as a person, not just a resource, that's what I hope will change." Vanessa left soon after, no resolution reached. I hadn't expected one. Decades of imbalance couldn't be corrected in a single conversation. Thanksgiving Day dawned clear and cold. For the first time in years, my kitchen sat silent. No turkey, defrosting. No pies cooling on racks, No silver to polish or tables to set. Instead, I drove to the community center downtown, where I'd signed up to help serve meals to those without homes or families to celebrate with. Eleanor had been right. There were ways to fill my life that nourished rather than depleted me. I spent the day serving mashed potatoes and gravy, listening to stories from people society had forgotten, sharing laughter and small kindnesses. By the time I returned home, exhausted but fulfilled, my phone showed 5 missed calls from Nathan and a text from Lily. "Grandma, where are you? Dad burned the turkey." I smiled, imagining the chaos in their kitchen, the realization dawning that the holiday magic I'd created for years didn't happen by itself. Some lessons were learned the hard way. That night, I sat on my porch swing with a cup of tea looking at the stars. Richard and I used to sit here summer evenings planning our someday adventures. Tomorrow I would continue packing. Next week I would meet with the real estate agent about selling the house. Next month, I would move into my new apartment at Sunrise Meadows with its cooking classes and day trips and community of people at the same stage of life. My phone rang. Nathan. "Mom," he said, his voice thick. "I'm sorry. About everything." "I know," I said. "Are you really going through with this? Moving away? Selling the house?" "Yes." A long pause. "Can we talk about it? Really talk, I mean. Not argue. I'd like to understand." It was a start. A small one, but real. "Come. For dinner tomorrow," I said. "Just you. We'll talk." After we hung up, I rocked gently on the swing, feeling the cool night air on my face. My future stretched before me, uncertain but mine to shape. There would be difficult conversations ahead, boundaries to establish, relationships to rebuild, on more equal footing. But for the first time in years, I was looking forward rather than back. I was choosing my own path, not just following the one others had set for me. I was remembering who Mabel Thornfield had been before she became only Nathan's mother, only the grandchildren's grandmother. The night I discovered I'd been excluded from Thanksgiving dinner, I thought my family was rejecting me. Now I understood that what seemed like an ending was actually a beginning. By canceling those car payments, I hadn't just changed my financial situation, I'd reclaimed my voice, my worth, my life. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to finally stop pretending. And sometimes, when you do, you discover the person you've been all along, waiting patiently to be remembered. "We made these for you, Grandma," Oliver said, handing me his creation first. "Since we didn't see you today." His card featured a crayon drawing of what appeared to be me in an apron, surrounded by pies. Inside, he'd written in his careful script, "Happy Thanksgiving. I miss your cooking." I smiled, touched by the effort, if not the sentiment. "Thank you, Oliver. That's very thoughtful." Lily bounded forward next, thrusting her card into my hands. Hers was decorated with glitter and stickers, the words "Best Grandma" spelled out in purple marker. Inside, she'd drawn a picture of the two of us holding hands. "I love you more than dance class," she'd written, which from Lily was high praise indeed. The twins presented their cards together, identical store-bought Thanksgiving cards, each signed in wobbly letters with their names and decorated with stickers. Clearly a last-minute effort, likely orchestrated by Vanessa, but the twins beamed with such pride that I made a fuss over them anyway. "These are wonderful," I said, genuinely moved. "I'll put them on display in my new apartment." "About that," Nathan began, glancing at Vanessa. "We've been talking. Maybe you don't need to rush into this move. The housing market is unpredictable. Right now, and Sunrise Meadows will still be there in a few months. You could spend the holidays with us, reconsider things after the new year." I recognized the strategy: delay, distract, return to the status quo. How many times had I allowed myself to be talked out of changes that might inconvenience the family? Not this time. "The house already has 2 offers," I said calmly. "Both above asking price. Christine thinks we'll have more by the weekend." Nathan looked startled. Already? But it's only been a few days. It's a desirable neighborhood and the house shows well. I settled into my armchair, gesturing for the others to make themselves comfortable. My deposit at Sunrise Meadows is paid, and I move in 3 weeks from Monday. Everything is arranged. But Grandma, Lily protested, what about Christmas? You always make those special cookies with the pink frosting. I'll send you the recipe, I said gently. Maybe your mom can help you make them this year. Vanessa's smile tightened. I'm not much of a baker. Neither was I at first, but we learn what's important to us. I met her eyes steadily. And if baking with Lily is important to you, you'll figure it out. The subtle challenge hung in the air between us. After a moment, Vanessa looked away. Can we see your new place? Oliver asked, breaking the tension. Dad says it's like a hotel with old people. I laughed despite myself. It's a retirement community, not a nursing home. And yes, you can visit once I'm settled. There's a guest suite where you could even stay overnight sometimes, if your parents agree. The children immediately began peppering me with questions about the swimming pool, the activities, whether pets were allowed. I answered patiently, watching their initial resistance to change gradually transform into curiosity. Children, I reflected, were so much more adaptable than adults. While the children explored the half-packed living room, Nathan pulled me aside into the kitchen, his expression troubled. Mom, I know you're determined to do this, and I'm trying to respect that. But I need to talk to you about something important. He lowered his voice. We're in trouble financially. Real trouble, not just the car payments. I felt a familiar tug of concern, the maternal instinct to rescue, to solve, to sacrifice. I pushed it away. What kind of trouble? He ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so reminiscent of Richard that my heart squeezed. We're underwater on the mortgage. The property taxes went up again, and with both car payments, the kids' activities, Vanessa's charity commitments, we're barely staying afloat. I was counting on a bonus that didn't come through. I see. I kept my voice neutral, though suspicion prickled at the base of my neck. This sudden financial crisis seemed a bit too conveniently timed. Have you spoken with a financial advisor? Considered downsizing? Nathan looked affronted. Mom, we can't just sell the house. The kids are settled in their schools, their activities. Their friends are in the neighborhood. Children adapt, I said. And there are excellent public schools that wouldn't drain your budget. The public schools here are terrible, he insisted. We moved to this district specifically for the private academies, which you apparently can't afford without my subsidies. His face flushed. So that's it? You're just going to watch us drown? I sighed, feeling suddenly very tired. Nathan, I've been keeping you afloat for years. At some point, you need to learn to swim on your own. This isn't a metaphor, Mom. This is real life. Our life. His voice rose slightly, and he glanced toward the living room, then lowered it again. We might lose the house. The old guilt tugged harder. What kind of mother would let her son lose his home if she could prevent it? But then I thought of all the nights I'd lain awake worrying about my dwindling savings, the physical therapy, sessions I'd skipped because of the copays, the careful budgeting I did to maintain the illusion that I could afford to support 2 households indefinitely. I've made my decision, Nathan. I'm selling this house and moving to Sunrise Meadows. What's left from the sale after paying for my new living arrangements will go into my retirement fund, which I've been depleting for years to support your family. So you're choosing your retirement over your grandchildren's stability? It was a low blow, and from the flicker of shame that crossed his face, Nathan knew it. I'm choosing my future over your financial irresponsibility, I said quietly. And I'm doing you and your children a favor. though you can't see it yet. They need to see their father stand on his own 2 feet, make hard choices, live within his means. What lesson does it teach them if Grandma always swoops in to fix everything? Nathan stared at me as if I'd transformed into a stranger before his eyes. Perhaps I had. The mother he knew, accommodating, self-sacrificing, endlessly giving, was indeed disappearing, replaced by a woman who finally understood her own worth. "Now," I said, "I've made some hot chocolate. Why don't we join the children in the living room? I'd like to hear about their Thanksgiving dinner." Without waiting for a response, I moved past him to the stove where a pot of milk was warming. After a moment, I heard him sigh and return to the living room, his footsteps heavy with disappointment. As I stirred cocoa into the milk, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the window above the sink. Silver hair, lines etched around my eyes and mouth, the slight stoop to my shoulders that had developed in recent years. Aging, yes, but not yet old. Not yet done. There were still roads to travel, experiences to savor, joys to discover. And for the first time in decades, I would be traveling those roads for myself, not as a support system for others. The evening proceeded with surface pleasantries masking deeper tensions. Vanessa maintained a cold politeness, speaking only when directly addressed. Nathan oscillated between strained cheerfulness with the children and wounded glances in my direction. Only the children seemed genuinely comfortable, sipping hot chocolate and chattering about school projects and holiday plans. "We're having Christmas at our house this year," Lily announced. "Mom's invited her whole family." I raised an eyebrow at Vanessa, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. "We thought it would be easier," she said, "with your move and everything." "That sounds lovely," I said, choosing graciousness over confrontation. "I hope you'll save me a slice of whatever dessert you serve." "You're not coming?" Emma asked, her small face creasing in confusion. Before I could respond, Vanessa jumped in. "Grandma might be busy with her new friends at her new home. We'll have to see." The presumption that I wouldn't be invited, or if invited, wouldn't attend, hung in the air like a challenge. I met Vanessa's gaze steadily. "Actually," I said, "I'd be delighted to join you for Christmas dinner if I'm welcome. I'll bring my famous apple pie." Vanessa's smile tightened further. "Of course you're welcome. Family is family." The words sounded hollow, a social nicety without genuine warmth behind it. But the children beamed with relief, and Nathan's shoulders relaxed slightly. Perhaps there was hope yet for this fractured relationship, if not for a return to the old dynamic. As the evening wound down, the twins began yawning, and Vanessa checked her watch with obvious impatience. "We should get going," she said. "School tomorrow." The family gathered their coats and prepared to leave. I hugged each child, breathing in their unique scents. Oliver's soap and grass, Lily's strawberry shampoo, the twins' mingled aromas of chocolate and childhood. Whatever tensions existed between the adults, my love for these children remained uncomplicated and pure. "Drive safely," I said as they filed out the door. Nathan hung back, hesitating in the doorway. "Mom, about what we discussed. Will you at least think about it? Maybe a small loan to help us catch up on the mortgage? Just until things stabilize?" I looked at my son, my only child, for whom I would once have sacrificed anything, and felt a complex mixture of love and disappointment. "I've thought about it, Nathan. My answer is no." His face fell, but he nodded, as if he'd expected nothing else. "Good night, Mom." "Good night, son." After they left, I moved through the quiet house, gathering empty cocoa mugs, straightening cushions, restoring order. The children's cards sat on the coffee table, bright splashes of color amid the beige neutrality of my half-packed living room. I gathered them carefully, planning to display them in my new home as a reminder of what remained valuable in my life, even as other things changed. The following week passed in a flurry of activity. The house received 5 offers, all above, asking price, and after careful consideration, I accepted one from a young family with twins of their own. There was something fitting about passing this home, where I'd raised my own child, to another family beginning their journey. The closing was scheduled for the week before Christmas, giving me just enough time to complete my move to Sunrise Meadows and settle in before the holiday. I continued packing, each box representing a decision about what to keep, what to let go, what deserved space in my new life. Nathan called once, his voice carefully neutral as he asked about the sale and my moving plans. Vanessa didn't call at all. The children sent texts, or rather, Lily did, using Vanessa's phone. "Miss you, Grandma," she wrote. "Can't wait to see your new house." On Friday, I received an unexpected call from Edith Porter, my companion from Thanksgiving at the community center. "Mabel, hope I'm not disturbing you. I'm calling to invite you to our book club meeting next Thursday evening. We're discussing The Dutch House by Anne Patchett. Have you read it?" Years ago, I admitted. I'd need to refresh my memory. Perfect reason to take a break from all that packing. And Louis will be there. He's our token male member. Her voice took on a teasing quality. "He asked specifically if you'd be joining us." I felt a schoolgirl flutter in my chest, ridiculous at my age. "Did he?" "Mm-hmm. He was quite taken with you at Thanksgiving. Something about your smile, he said." I laughed, embarrassed but pleased. "I'd love to come. What time?" Edith gave me the details, then added casually, "Louis offered to pick you up if you'd like. Save you from driving after dark." The flutter intensified. "That would be nice. Thank you." After hanging up, I caught sight of myself in the hall mirror, cheeks flushed, eyes bright with an emotion I hadn't felt in years. Anticipation? Interest? It couldn't be attraction, surely. I was too old for such feelings. But as I returned to my packing, I found myself humming a tune Richard and I had danced to at our wedding, my steps lighter than they had been in years. Feeling suddenly daring, I drove to the mall that afternoon, a place I normally avoided, and ventured into a department store. A helpful salesperson guided me through racks of clothing far more stylish than my usual attire, helping me select a pair of slim-cut trousers and a soft blue sweater that, she assured me, brought out my eyes. "Special occasion?" she asked as I paid. "Just a book club," I said, then added, surprising myself, "with a gentleman friend." She smiled. "He's a lucky man." The comment stayed with me as I drove home, warming me from the inside. When was the last time anyone had seen me? As a woman, not just a mother or grandmother. When had I last thought of myself that way? On Sunday, Nathan arrived alone for a brief visit, ostensibly to help with some heavy lifting, though I suspected he had another agenda. "The kids miss you," he said as we sorted through books in the study, deciding which to keep and which to donate. "Lily keeps asking when they can see your new place." "Once I'm settled," I promised. "Perhaps after the new year." He nodded, setting aside a stack of mystery novels. "Mom, about what we discussed. The financial situation." I sighed. "Nathan, my decision hasn't changed." "I know," he said quickly. "And I've been thinking about what you said. About standing on my own feet, making hard choices." He placed another book in the donation box. "You were right. We've been living beyond our means, expecting you to fill the gaps." I looked up, surprised by this concession. And I've been talking with Vanessa. We're going to make some changes. Put the kids in public school next year, sell one of the cars, cut back on extracurriculars. It won't be easy, and Vanessa is struggling with it. But it's the right thing to do. Pride surged through me, not for my own firmness, but for my son's growth. "I'm glad to hear that, Nathan. Truly." He smiled, a flash of the boy he'd once been visible in his adult face. "We'll figure it out. Dad always said Thornfields were survivors." That we are, I agreed. We worked in companionable silence for a while, the tension between us easing with each box filled. As we carried a load of donations to his car, Nathan paused in the driveway. "I've been unfair to you," he said abruptly. "For years, really, taking you for granted, assuming you'd always be there to pick up our slack." He stared at the ground. "I'm sorry, Mom." The simple apology, offered without qualifications or expectations, meant more than he could know. "Thank you, Nathan. I want things to be better between us. Different, but better. I want my kids to know their grandmother as a person, not just as a resource." He looked up, his eyes earnest. "Will you help me with that?" "I'd like nothing more," I said. When he left an hour later, something had shifted between us, a rebalancing, a step toward a healthier relationship. It wouldn't be easy, and Vanessa's resistance might yet prove an insurmountable obstacle. But for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about my connection with my son. Thursday evening arrived with a light dusting of snow, adding a magical quality to the winter landscape. I dressed carefully in my new outfit, applied makeup, something I rarely bothered with these days, and even spritzed on the perfume Richard had given me for our last anniversary together. Louis arrived promptly at 6:30, standing on my doorstep with a bouquet of winter flowers, white roses mixed with deep red berries and fragrant evergreen sprigs. "For you," he said, handing them to me with a slight bow. "To brighten your new home once you move in." "They're beautiful," I said, genuinely touched. "Please, come in while I put them in water." He followed me into the kitchen, his presence filling the space in a way that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. It had been so long since I'd had a man in my home, other than Nathan or service providers. Louis moved differently, more deliberate, more self-contained, with none of my son's restless energy or entitlement. "Your home is lovely," he said, glancing around at the half-packed kitchen. "It must be difficult to leave after so many years." "Less difficult than I expected," I admitted, arranging the flowers in a crystal vase. "It's time for a change." He nodded, understanding in his warm brown eyes. "Edith mentioned you're moving to Sunrise Meadows. My cousin Marion lives there, teaches the French conversation group." "So you mentioned at the diner," I reminded him, smiling. "I'm looking forward to meeting her." "Ah, you have a good memory. Marion will appreciate that." He checked his watch. "We should go. Edith runs the book club with military precision. Tardiness is not tolerated." I grabbed my coat and purse, and Louis helped me into the coat with old-fashioned courtesy, his hands gentle but sure on my shoulders. The simple gesture transported me back decades, to early dates with Richard when such gallantry had been commonplace. Louis's car was a well-maintained older model Volvo, immaculately clean inside. As we drove through the snowy streets toward Edith's home, he asked thoughtful questions about my move, my interests, my family, listening to my answers with genuine attention, offering observations of his own without dominating the conversation. "You mentioned at Thanksgiving that you enjoy cooking," he said as we turned onto a tree-lined street of modest brick homes. "Any particular cuisine?" "I'm traditional in some ways, the comfort foods I grew up with. But since Richard died, I've been experimenting more. Thai, Mediterranean, even some Korean dishes." "A woman of varied tastes," he said approvingly. "I'm something of a cook myself. Learned out of necessity after Sophia, my wife, passed. She did all the cooking during our marriage. Excellent cook, terrible teacher. Never wrote anything down, just cooked by instinct." "My mother was the same way," I said. "Drove me crazy when I tried to learn her recipes. A pinch of this, a dash. Of that, no measurements, no times." "Exactly." When Sophia died, I couldn't replicate a single one of her dishes. Had to teach myself from scratch. Now I host a monthly dinner for other widowers in my building. We call ourselves the Left Behind Gourmets. I laughed. I love that. You should join us sometime, he said, then added quickly, not that you're a widower, obviously, but we welcome guests. The more the merrier. I'd like that, I said, meaning it. Edith's home was warm and inviting, filled with books, colorful, textiles, and the aroma of freshly baked cookies. About 8 people had gathered in her living room, an eclectic group ranging in age from mid-60s to what must have been early 90s. Edith made the introductions, and I was welcomed with genuine warmth. The discussion was lively and engaging, far more intellectually stimulating than the polite small talk of neighborhood gatherings or the child-centered conversations at Nathan and Vanessa's. These people had read widely, thought deeply, lived fully. They discussed the novel's themes of family obligation, sibling bonds, and property as legacy with nuance and insight drawn from their own rich life experiences. I found myself speaking, up more than I had in any group setting for years, offering observations about the book's treatment of motherhood and abandonment. To my surprise, people listened, really listened, and responded thoughtfully to my comments, building on them rather than simply waiting for their turn to speak. During a break for refreshments, Marion, Lewis's cousin, a vivacious woman with silver curls and bright bird-like eyes, sought me out. Lewis tells me you're moving to Sunrise Meadows. When do you arrive? December 18th, I said, just a week before Christmas. Excellent timing. We have a wonderful holiday concert on the 22nd. The residence choir performs, and there's a reception afterward. Perfect way to meet people. I've joined the cooking club, I told her, and I'm considering the gardening group as well. Both excellent choices. I run the French conversation group on Wednesday afternoons. If you're interested, all levels welcome. My French is terribly rusty, I admitted. Just what I remember from high school and college. She waved this away. Most of us are beginners or relearners. It's about the joy of trying something new, not achieving perfection. The joy of trying something new. How long had it been since I'd approached life with that attitude? Somewhere along the way, in the exhaustion of single parenthood, then the demands of caregiving for Richard, then the gradual slide into becoming Nathan and Vanessa's support system. I'd forgotten that joy existed in novelty, in challenge, in growth. As the evening wound down, Louis and I prepared to leave, collecting our coats amid promises to attend next month's meeting. Edith hugged me at the door. You're a natural fit for our little group, she said, and not just because Louis can't take his eyes off you. I felt myself blush like a schoolgirl. Edith, really? She laughed. At our age, there's no time for coyness. Life is too short. If there's a spark there, fan it. See what happens. On the drive home, a comfortable silence settled between Louis and me, broken only by occasional comments about the book discussion or the increasingly heavy snowfall. When we reached my house, he insisted on walking me to the door despite the weather. I enjoyed this evening tremendously, he said as we stood on the porch, snowflakes catching in his silver hair. I hope you'll join us again next month. I'd like that, I said. And perhaps before then. That left-behind gourmet's dinner you mentioned? His face brightened. Absolutely. It's the second Saturday of each month. I'll call you with details. Please do. We stood looking at each other, neither quite ready to end the evening. After a moment, Louis leaned forward and kissed my cheek, his lips warm against my skin despite the cold night air. Good night, Mabel, he said softly. Until next time. I watched him walk back to his car, a tall figure moving carefully through the falling snow. Only when he had driven away did I touch my fingers to the spot where his lips had brushed my cheek, a smile spreading across my face. Inside, I moved through the quiet house, turning off lights, checking locks, the familiar rituals of ending a day. But something had changed. The house no longer felt like a repository of memories, a shrine to what had been. Instead, It felt like exactly what it was, a temporary stopping place on the journey to somewhere new. The next morning, my phone rang early. Vanessa's name appeared on the screen, surprising me. She rarely called directly, preferring to communicate through Nathan or the children. "Hello, Vanessa," I answered, bracing myself for whatever might come. "Mabel." Her voice was tight, controlled. "I'm calling about Christmas arrangements." "Yes?" "Nathan says you'll be joining us for dinner." "If that's still all right with you," I said carefully. A pause. "Of course. Family is family." The same hollow phrase she'd used at Thanksgiving. "The thing is, my parents will be staying with us for the week. They're taking the guest room, and my sister and her husband will be on the pull-out couch in the den, so there won't be accommodations for you to stay over." The implication was clear. I was invited for the meal only, not for the extended family time before or after. A token appearance to satisfy the children and Nathan, nothing more. "That's fine," I said evenly. I hadn't planned to stay overnight. "Good. Dinner will be at 4. We're doing a Secret Santa exchange this year instead of individual gifts. Nathan will text you your person." "Actually," I said, "I've already purchased gifts for the children. Small things for their stockings. Is that all right?" Another pause. "I suppose. Nothing extravagant, please. We're trying to teach the kids about moderation." The irony of this statement, coming from a woman who had relied on my financial support to maintain a lifestyle well beyond her means, was not lost on me. But I chose not to engage. "Of course. Just books and small toys." "Fine. I'll see you on Christmas Day then." Before I could respond, she hung up. I set the phone down, processing the conversation. Vanessa's resistance to the changing dynamic between us was not unexpected, but I had hoped for a less frosty approach to the holidays. For the children's sake, if nothing else. Still, her reception, grudging as it was, represented a step forward from the Thanksgiving exclusion. Perhaps over time, we could build a relationship based on mutual respect, if not warmth. For now, I would focus on the positive. I would see my grandchildren on Christmas in whatever limited capacity Vanessa allowed. My phone chimed with a text message. Not Nathan or Vanessa, but Louis. "Good morning, Mabel. I hope this isn't too forward, but I'm attending a holiday concert at the community center this evening. Would you care to join me? We could have dinner afterward." I read the message twice, pleasure warming me from within. Then, without overthinking it, I typed a reply. "I'd love to. What time?" As I set the phone down, I caught sight of my reflection in the hall mirror. Cheeks flushed, eyes bright, a smile playing at the corners of my mouth. I hardly recognized myself. Or perhaps more accurately, I was recognizing parts of myself, long forgotten. The woman who had once loved music and art and conversation, who had once looked forward to evenings out, who had once felt the flutter of connection with someone new. That woman had been buried under decades of obligation, sacrifice, and routine. But she wasn't gone. She had been waiting, patiently, for the chance to emerge again. And now, as one chapter of my life prepared to close, another was opening. Unexpected, unplanned, but suddenly full of possibility. Whatever came next, with Louis, with Nathan and his family, with my new community at Sunrise Meadows, I would face it as myself. Not just as Nathan's mother or the children's grandmother, but as Mabel Thornfield, complete, complex, and finally, after all these years, choosing her own path forward. "I'm looking forward to it," I said with genuine warmth. As I drove back to Sunrise Meadows, I reflected on the lunch. There had been tensions, certainly, particularly with Vanessa's parents, but also moments of real connection with the children and even small steps forward with Vanessa herself. Rome wasn't built in a day, as Richard used to say. Rebuilding family, relationships on healthier foundations would take time and patience. Back at my apartment, I had just enough time to rest briefly before preparing for dinner with Louis and his family. I chose a different outfit, a deep burgundy dress I'd purchased years ago for a symphony fundraiser and rarely worn since. It was elegant without being fussy, festive without being overly formal. I added a simple gold necklace, earrings, and low heels. Louis arrived precisely at 6, looking handsome in a sports coat and slacks. His eyes widened appreciatively when I opened the door. "Mabel, you look absolutely beautiful," he said, his sincerity evident in his voice. "Thank you," I said, feeling a pleasant warmth spread through me at his admiration. "You look quite dashing yourself." He offered his arm with old-fashioned courtesy. "Shall we? Miranda is eager to meet you." The drive to Louis's condominium took about 15 minutes, during which he shared anecdotes about his daughter and her family. How Miranda and her wife Elena had met at a music conference. Their journey to parenthood through adoption, the twins' distinct personalities despite their identical appearance. "Miranda teaches piano at the conservatory," he explained, "and Elena is a violinist with the symphony. The boys are showing musical aptitude already, though at this age, that mostly means making enthusiastic noise on toy instruments." I laughed, thinking of my own grandchildren. "That sounds familiar." Jacob went through a phase where he would only communicate by banging on pots with wooden spoons. Louis's condominium was in an elegant older building with tree-lined grounds and a stately lobby. His unit on the 4th floor was warm and inviting, masculine without being austere, with comfortable furniture, rich colors, and walls lined with bookshelves. The space reflected its owner, cultured, thoughtful, welcoming. Miranda greeted us at the door, a tall woman with her father's warm eyes and an easy smile. "You must be Mabel," she said, embracing me without hesitation. "Dad has told us so much about you." "All good things, I hope," I said, returning her hug. "Nothing but praise," she assured me, leading us into the living room where her wife Elena, petite, dark-haired, with an artist's intense gaze, was attempting to corral 2 small boys who seemed determined to climb the furniture. "Alex, Zach, come meet Ms. Mabel," Miranda called. The twins paused in their acrobatics, regarding me with identical curious expressions before approaching cautiously. They were beautiful children, with dark curly hair and olive complexions that spoke to Elena's Hispanic heritage. "Are you Grandpa's girlfriend?" one of them asked bluntly. "Alexander!" Elena exclaimed, mortified. I laughed, charmed by his directness. "I'm your grandfather's friend," I said diplomatically. "But he talks about you all the time," the boy persisted. "That's enough questions for now," Louis interjected, though I noticed he didn't actually deny his grandson's assumption. "Why don't you show Ms. Mabel the train set we've been working on?" This successfully diverted the children's attention, and I was led to a corner of the living room where an elaborate model train layout occupied a tabletop. Louis explained that he and the twins had been assembling it over several visits, each time adding new elements to the miniature landscape. "Grandpa lets us put the trees wherever we want," Zach informed me seriously, "even if they don't make sense." "That's what grandfathers are for," I agreed. "To let you do things that don't always make sense." Dinner was a joyful affair. A delicious lasagna prepared by Elena, accompanied by salad and garlic bread. The conversation flowed easily, covering music, books, travel, and the twins' preschool adventures. Miranda and Elena were warm and inclusive, asking about my family, my move to Sunrise Meadows, my interests and background. "Dad mentioned you're joining the cooking club," Miranda said as we enjoyed tiramisu for dessert. "He says you're quite accomplished in the kitchen." "I enjoy experimenting," I said modestly. "Your father's been very kind in his assessment of my skills." "Dad doesn't give compliments lightly," she assured me, "especially about cooking. My mother set a high standard in that department." "Sophia was an excellent cook," Louis acknowledged. "But from what Mabel has described of her Thai and Mediterranean dishes, I think they would have had much to discuss." After dinner, while Elena supervised the twins' bedtime routine, Miranda, Louie, and I settled in the living room with coffee. The conversation turned to family dynamics, with Miranda sharing stories of her own in-laws. Elena's parents were skeptical about our relationship at first, she explained. Traditional Catholic family, very conservative values. But they adore the boys, and over time they've come to accept us. Not always perfectly, but with genuine effort. That's all any of us can ask for, I said. Genuine effort, respectful engagement, even when there are differences. Exactly. Miranda looked at me thoughtfully. Dad says you're navigating some family challenges of your own. I glanced at Louie, who had the grace to look slightly embarrassed. I might have mentioned your situation with your daughter-in-law, he admitted. It's all right, I assured him, then turned back to Miranda. Yes, we're in a period of readjustment. My daughter-in-law and I have never been particularly close, and recent changes in how I support the family financially have created some tension. Miranda nodded understandingly. Family economics can be tricky. Elena and I had to establish clear boundaries with both sets of parents early on about childcare expectations, financial assistance, holiday commitments. It wasn't always easy, but in the long run, it's been healthier for everyone. That's my hope, I said. That clearer boundaries will ultimately lead to healthier relationships all around. It will, she said confidently, though there may be some rough patches along the way. When it was time to leave, Miranda hugged me again, this time whispering in my ear. It's wonderful to see Dad so happy. Thank you for that. Her words stayed with me during the drive back to Sunrise Meadows, warming me from within. Louis and I had known each other only a short time, but already his family was welcoming me, seeing the positive impact of our connection. Your daughter is lovely, I told Louis as we pulled into the Sunrise Meadows parking lot. Elena, too, and the boys are adorable. They liked you, he said. I could tell. Miranda especially. She's always been protective of me since her mother died. Her approval means a lot. I'm glad to have it, I said sincerely. At my apartment door, Louis kissed me goodnight. A gentle but lingering kiss that sent my heart fluttering like a teenager's. When he drew back, his expression was tender. Good night, Mabel. Sleep well. Good night, Louis. Inside, I moved through my evening routine with a lightness in my step, humming softly to myself. The day had been full. Lunch with Nathan's, family, dinner with Louis's. And while there had been moments of tension, particularly with Vanessa's parents, overall I felt a sense of forward progress, of healing, of growth. The next morning, I woke to a text from Lily. Grandma, can we video call? I want to show you my painting. I smiled, touched by her reaching out. Of course, sweetheart, whenever you'd like. Minutes later, my phone rang with a video call. Lily's face filled the screen, her excitement palpable. Grandma, I already used my new watercolors. Want to see? I'd love to, I said. She flipped the camera to show a painting propped on her desk. A remarkably good rendering of a winter landscape, with trees covered in snow and a red cardinal providing a splash of color. It's beautiful, Lily, I said, genuinely impressed. You have real talent. Mom says I should take proper art classes, she said, turning the camera back to her face. Like, with a real teacher, not just at school. That sounds like a wonderful idea, I agreed, pleased that Vanessa was encouraging her daughter's artistic interests. But Dad says we have to cut back on activities, Lily continued, her expression falling, because of money and stuff. I chose my words carefully. Sometimes families need to make choices about how to spend their money. It doesn't mean your art isn't important. I guess. She sighed dramatically, then brightened. Hey, could you teach me? You know how to paint, right? I've seen your pictures. I'm not trained like a real art teacher, I demurred, but I'd be happy to paint with you sometimes. Maybe you could visit my new place after Christmas, and we could set up in the sunroom here. There's wonderful light. Yes, she bounced excitedly. And maybe I could stay overnight? Dad said there's a guest room. We'll have to see what your parents say about that, I said, not wanting to make promises I couldn't keep. But yes, there is a guest suite where family can stay. We chatted for a few more minutes before Lily was called away for breakfast. After ending the call, I found myself smiling. Despite the tensions with Vanessa, despite the reduced financial support, despite all the changes of recent weeks, my connection with my grandchildren remained intact. Different, perhaps, but not diminished. The days leading up to Christmas passed, in a pleasant blur. I attended my first cooking club meeting, where I was warmly welcomed and invited to demonstrate Thai curry techniques at a future session. I joined Marion's French conversation group, where my rusty language skills were gently encouraged rather than criticized. I explored the Sunrise Meadows grounds with the walking club, discovering hidden gardens and contemplative spaces I hadn't noticed during my initial tours. Throughout it all, Louis remained a steady presence, calling daily, joining me for meals in the Sunrise dining room, escorting me to the residents' holiday concert. We were becoming a recognized couple within the community, drawing knowing smiles from neighbors and staff alike. People are talking, Marion teased during French group. Le nouveau romance is quite the topic of conversation. There's not much to talk about, I protested mildly. No, my cousin visits daily, brings you flowers, escorts you to events. What do you call this in America if not courtship? I felt myself blush. We enjoy each other's company. Bien. Sûr, she said, winking. Just company. Christmas Eve arrived with a light snowfall that transformed the landscape into a winter wonderland. I attended the candlelight service at the Sunrise Meadows Chapel, a non-denominational gathering that honored various traditions while focusing on universal themes of light, hope, and community. Louis sat beside me, our shoulders touching companionably, as we sang carols and listened to readings. Afterward, he walked me back to my apartment through the gently falling snow. Any plans for tomorrow morning? He asked as we reached my door. Just preparing for dinner at Nathan's, I said. I'm bringing an apple pie. Miranda and her family are attending Elena's parents' celebration, he said. I usually join them, but this year... He hesitated. This year I thought I might spend the morning quietly, perhaps with company if you're available. The invitation was clear. He wanted to spend Christmas morning with me. The significance wasn't lost on either of us. Holidays, especially Christmas, carried emotional weight. Sharing them represented a level of commitment, an acknowledgement of growing importance in each other's lives. I'd like that, I said softly. He smiled, relieved. I'll bring breakfast. Around 9? Perfect. He kissed me goodnight with a tenderness that lingered even after he'd gone. Inside my apartment, I wrapped the final Christmas gifts for Nathan's family. The Secret Santa craft kit for Emma was already wrapped and under their tree, but I'd purchased small additional items for everyone else, respecting Vanessa's instruction about moderation. For Nathan, a handsome leather journal, remembering how he'd kept one as a teenager. For Vanessa, a cookbook featuring simple but elegant family meals, a gentle encouragement of her stated desire to learn baking for Lily's sake. For Oliver, a star map with a compass. For Lily, a set of artist-quality brushes to complement her new watercolors. For Jacob, a storybook about famous architects and the buildings they'd designed, nurturing his interest in construction. For Emma, alongside the Secret Santa gift, a small sketchbook and colored pencils. Modest gifts, thoughtfully chosen. Not extravagant enough to undermine Nathan and Vanessa's new financial discipline, but personal enough to show genuine attention to each recipient's interests. I placed them in gift bags, added tissue paper, and set them by the door ready for tomorrow's visit. Then I prepared the apple pie, Richard's favorite, made with his mother's recipe that I'd perfected over decades of marriage. The familiar ritual of mixing, rolling, filling, and crimping soothed me, connecting me to holidays past while anchoring me in the present moment. As I slid the pie into the oven, my phone rang. Nathan. "Hey, Mom," he said, his voice tight with what sounded like stress. "Quick question about tomorrow. What time were you planning to arrive?" "Around 3:30, I said. "You mentioned dinner at 4. Right. He sighed heavily. "Look, there's been a char situation. Vanessa's sister and her husband had a pipe burst at their house. They're coming to stay with us until it's fixed, which means we're shuffling sleeping arrangements. Vanessa's parents are in the guest room. Her sister and brother-in-law are taking the den, and the kids are doubling up in bedrooms." I waited, sensing there was more to this call than a lodging update. "The thing is," he continued reluctantly, "we're going to be really cramped. And Vanessa's mother has been cooking up a storm, taking over the kitchen completely. It's getting tense, to be honest. Vanessa's stressed, the kids are overstimulated, and now with her sister's family added to the mix." "Nathan," I said, gently, "are you calling to uninvite me for Christmas dinner?" A pause. "Not uninvite, exactly. More like, wondering if you'd be open to rescheduling? Maybe we could do our family Christmas next weekend instead, when things are calmer and we can really enjoy each other's company." I felt a sharp pang of disappointment, but also a strange sense of liberation. Unlike at Thanksgiving, this didn't feel like a deliberate exclusion. Nathan sounded genuinely regretful, caught between competing family obligations and limited space. "Of course," I said. "I understand completely. Family emergencies happen." "You're not upset?" He sounded relieved, but also slightly surprised, as if he'd expected resistance. "Disappointed, naturally, but not upset. We'll celebrate another day, as you suggested." "Thanks, Mom. You're the best." His voice warmed. "And hey, this way, we can really focus on you when we do get together. Make it special." After hanging up, I considered my change in circumstances. Christmas Day, once so rigidly structured around family traditions and obligations, was now unexpectedly open. I'd be spending the morning with Louis, but the afternoon and evening stretched before me, unplanned and full of possibility. As I removed the golden brown pie from the oven, a thought occurred to me. Louis had mentioned that in previous years he'd joined Miranda's family at Elena's parents' home for Christmas. This year he'd chosen to remain behind, presumably to spend part of the day with me. That meant he likely had no plans for Christmas dinner either. On impulse, I called him. "Louis, about tomorrow." "Yes?" He sounded concerned. "Is everything all right?" "Everything's fine. I was wondering, would you like to join me for Christmas dinner? Here at my apartment, I've made an apple pie, and I could prepare a small turkey breast, some simple sides. Nothing elaborate, but festive." "I'd like that very much," he said warmly. "But are you sure? I thought you were joining your family." "There's been a change of plans," I explained. "They have a full house with unexpected guests. We're postponing our celebration." "I'm sorry to hear that," he said, sounding genuinely sympathetic. "But selfishly, I'm delighted to have more of your company tomorrow." "Then it's settled. Breakfast at 9, dinner around 5? Perfect. Can I bring anything?" "Just yourself," I said. "Though if you happen to have a favorite holiday dish you'd like to contribute, you're welcome to." As a matter of fact, I make a rather spectacular cranberry relish, family recipe. I look forward to trying it. After we hung up, I stood in my kitchen, considering the unexpected turn of events. For the first time in 42 years, I wouldn't be celebrating Christmas with Nathan. There was sadness in that realization, certainly, but also, surprisingly, a sense of opportunity, a chance to create new traditions, new memories, new connections. I quickly revised my shopping list. A small turkey breast rather than a whole, bird, reduced quantities of side dishes, wine, candles, perhaps some festive napkins. I could pick everything up in the morning, before Louis arrived with breakfast. As I prepared for bed that night, I found myself humming Christmas carols, my earlier disappointment replaced by anticipation. The holiday would be different this year, smaller, quieter, focused on new connections rather than old traditions. But different didn't mean lesser, just new, just mine. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, sunlight sparkling on fresh snow. I woke early, as was my habit, and spent a quiet hour with coffee and a book before dressing and heading to the small market near Sunrise Meadows that remained open even on the holiday. The store was nearly empty, just a few other last-minute shoppers gathering forgotten items. I selected a small turkey breast, potatoes, green beans, cranberries for a sauce, in case Louis forgot his relish, and a bottle of good wine. The cashier, working the holiday shift with admirable cheer, wished me a Merry Christmas as I paid. "First Christmas in your new place?" she asked, having recognized me from previous visits. "Yes, it is," I confirmed. "Making new traditions is nice," she said wisely. "My husband and I started over when the kids moved away. Now we do Christmas brunch instead of dinner. Works better for us." I smiled, appreciating her perspective. Exactly. New traditions for a new chapter. Back at my apartment, I had just put away the groceries when Louis arrived, bearing a basket covered with a festive cloth. His face was flushed from the cold, his eyes bright with holiday spirit. "Merry Christmas, Mabel," he said, kissing my cheek as he entered. "Merry Christmas, Louis. What have you brought?" He set the basket on my kitchen counter and removed the cloth with a flourish. "Breakfast. Homemade cinnamon rolls, a frittata that only needs heating, fresh orange juice, and, of course, coffee. Oh, and this." He produced a small wrapped package from his coat pocket. A token of my esteem. The gift was wrapped in silver paper with a simple blue ribbon. I took it, surprised and touched. "I have something for you as well," I admitted, retrieving a small package from my bedroom. Though I wasn't sure when to give it to you. We settled at my small dining table with coffee while the frittata warmed in the oven. By unspoken agreement, we set the gifts aside for the moment, focusing instead on the pleasure of shared company on a quiet Christmas morning. Louis's breakfast was delicious, the cinnamon rolls still warm, the frittata full of vegetables and herbs, the orange juice freshly squeezed. We ate slowly, savoring both the food and the conversation, sharing holiday memories from years past. Sophia loved Christmas, Louis recalled. She'd start planning in July, gifts, decorations, menus. The house would be transformed, every surface covered with seasonal finery. After she died, I couldn't bear to unpack a single ornament for 2 years. I nodded, understanding completely. Richard was the same about the tree. He insisted on cutting it himself, even when his health was failing. Our last Christmas together, he was too weak to go to the tree farm, so Nathan brought one already cut. Richard pretended to be satisfied, but I could see his disappointment. "The traditions we build together become sacred," Louis said thoughtfully. "When they can no longer be fulfilled in the same way, it feels like another loss." "Yes," I agreed. But then, eventually, new traditions emerge. Different, but meaningful in their own way. "Like this," he said, gesturing between us. A new tradition in the making. After breakfast, we exchanged gifts. I'd chosen a leather-bound edition of poetry by Robert Frost, remembering Louis mentioning his admiration for the poet during one of our conversations. His gift to me was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a gardening trowel, exquisitely detailed. For your new garden plots come spring, he explained as he fastened it around my wrist. It's beautiful, I said, genuinely touched by the thoughtfulness of the gift. Thank you. We spent the morning leisurely, talking, reading, listening to holiday music on the radio. Around noon, Louis helped me prepare the turkey breast and vegetables for our evening meal, working beside me in the kitchen with comfortable familiarity, as if we'd been sharing such moments for years rather than days. You mentioned cranberry. Relish, I reminded him as we finished the preparations. In the basket, he confirmed. My grandmother's recipe: cranberries, orange zest, walnuts, and a secret ingredient I'll never reveal. Intriguing, I teased. I'll have to see if I can identify it. In the early afternoon, we bundled up for a walk around the Sunrise Meadows grounds. The day remained clear and bright, the snow crunching pleasantly beneath our boots. Other residents were similarly enjoying the weather, exchanging holiday greetings as we passed. We paused by the frozen pond, watching children from neighboring properties skating on the smooth surface, their laughter carrying in the crisp air. Standing there, Louis's hand warm in mine despite the cold, I felt a profound sense of contentment wash over me. This wasn't the Christmas I had expected or planned. There were no grandchildren unwrapping presents with gleeful abandon, no elaborate family dinner requiring days of preparation, no navigating of complex family dynamics. It was simpler, quieter, focused on genuine connection rather than obligation or tradition. And yet, it felt right. It felt like exactly where I was meant to be at this moment in my life, creating something new, something authentic, something chosen rather than imposed. Penny for your thoughts, Louis said, squeezing my hand gently. I was just thinking how unexpected life can be, I said. A month ago, I would never have imagined spending Christmas like this. And yet, here we are. Here we are indeed, he agreed. And I, for one, am grateful for whatever twist of fate brought us together. We returned to my apartment as dusk began to fall, the holiday lights around the grounds twinkling against the darkening sky. Together, we prepared our Christmas dinner, simple but festive, with the small table set with my good china and candles casting a warm glow over the scene. Louis's cranberry relish was indeed spectacular, the perfect accompaniment to the roasted turkey. We lingered over the meal, sharing stories, laughing, occasionally lapsing into comfortable silence. When we finally reached the apple pie, Louis took his first bite and closed his eyes in appreciation. This, he declared, is the best apple pie I've ever tasted, and I don't say that lightly. I smiled, pleased. It was Richard's favorite, his mother's recipe, though I've tweaked it over the years. He had excellent taste, Louis said, reaching across the table to take my hand. In pies and in women. The simple compliment warmed me from within. After dinner, we moved to the small sofa, continuing our conversation as the clock ticked toward evening. Outside, snow began to fall again, adding a fresh layer to the earlier accumulation. I should go before the roads get worse, Louis said reluctantly around 8 o'clock, though I'm tempted to stay longer. It's been a wonderful day, I said sincerely. Thank you for sharing it with me. At the door, he kissed, a lingering, tender kiss that held promise for the future. Merry Christmas, Mabel. Merry Christmas, Louis. After he left, I moved through my evening routine with a sense of deep satisfaction. The day had been nothing like the Christmases of my past, and yet it had been perfect in its own way. Simple, genuine, chosen. As I drifted toward sleep, I reflected that perhaps that was the greatest gift of this new chapter in my life. The freedom to choose, to reshape, to reimagine what holidays, and indeed, what everyday life, could be. My phone chimed with a text. Nathan. Merry Christmas, Mom. Sorry again about dinner. Chaos here. Kids loved their gifts, though. Thank you. Looking forward to our makeup celebration next weekend. I smiled, typing back, Merry Christmas. No apologies needed. Enjoy your full house. Talk tomorrow. Setting the phone aside, I closed my eyes, content in the knowledge that while some doors had closed, or at least narrowed, new ones had opened, revealing possibilities I never could have imagined when this journey began with a forgotten birthday and a text message banning me from Thanksgiving dinner. The car payments I'd canceled had set in motion a chain of events that led not to family destruction, as I'd briefly feared, but to family recalibration. And in the process, I'd rediscovered myself, not just as Nathan's mother or the grandchildren's grandmother, but as Mabel Thornfield, a woman with her own dreams, desires, and capacity for joy. It was, I reflected as sleep claimed me, the most meaningful Christmas gift I could have received. The week between Christmas and New Year's passed in a pleasant blur. Each day at Sunrise Meadows offered new activities and opportunities for connection. Holiday crafts workshop where I created handmade greeting cards, a cooking demonstration featuring international desserts, a chamber music concert in the community theater. Throughout it all, Lewis remained a steady presence, joining me for meals, walks around the grounds, and quiet evenings of conversation in my apartment. On Thursday morning, Nathan called to confirm our rescheduled family Christmas celebration for the coming Saturday. We're thinking lunch around 1, he said. If that works for you? That sounds perfect, I replied, genuinely looking forward to seeing the grandchildren. Despite my contentment with my new living situation and blossoming relationship with Louis, I missed the children's energy and enthusiasm. Great. And Mom. He hesitated. I want to apologize again about Christmas Day. It wasn't how any of us wanted things to go. There's no need to apologize, I assured him. Family emergencies happen. I had a lovely day here. You weren't alone, were you? His voice held concern. Not at all. I spent the day with a friend. I chose my words carefully, not yet ready to introduce the concept of Louis into our family dynamic. We had a wonderful, quiet celebration. Good, that's good. He sounded relieved. The kids have been asking about you. They can't wait to see your new place. I'm looking forward to showing them. Perhaps after lunch on Saturday, you could bring them for a tour. There's a game room and indoor pool they might enjoy. They'd love that, Nathan agreed. Though fair warning, once they see the pool, we may never get them to leave. I laughed. I'm counting on it. My neighbors with grandchildren say the pool is the secret weapon for ensuring regular visits. After we hung up, I found myself smiling at the shift in our relationship. There was an ease developing between Nathan and me, a mutual respect that had been missing before. He was no longer treating me as an unlimited resource to be tapped at will, and I was no longer allowing myself to be taken for granted. The result was a more balanced adult connection, still parent and child, but with healthier boundaries. That evening, Lewis and I attended a New Year's concert in the Sunrise Meadows Theater, a local jazz quartet playing standards and holiday favorites. As the music washed over us, Lewis reached over and took my hand, a gesture that had become comfortably familiar in recent days. I've been thinking, he said during intermission, his voice low enough that only I could hear. About New Year's Eve. Oh? I raised an eyebrow, curious. There's a dinner dance here at Sunrise. Marion mentioned you hadn't signed up yet. I nodded. I wasn't sure about my plans. Well, I was hoping. He cleared his throat. That is, I'd be honored if you'd accompany me, as my date. The formal invitation, delivered with such earnest dignity, touched me deeply. I'd love to, I said simply. His face brightened. Wonderful. It's semi-formal, I understand. I'll find something suitable, I promised, mentally reviewing my limited wardrobe. Most of my dressier clothes had been donated during the move, deemed unlikely to be needed in my new, more casual lifestyle. The next morning, I called Eleanor, my oldest friend who had moved to Arizona years earlier. We'd been exchanging regular texts and occasional calls since my move, with Eleanor cheering on my newfound independence from afar. "I need fashion advice," I said after our initial greetings. "There's a New Year's Eve dinner dance at sunrise. Meadows and I've been invited by a gentleman friend." "Mabel Thornfield." Eleanor's voice rose with delighted interest. "A gentleman friend? Do tell." I found myself blushing like a schoolgirl as I described Louis, his kindness, his intellect, his thoughtful gestures, our growing connection over the past weeks. "He sounds wonderful," Eleanor said warmly. "And about time, if you don't mind my saying so. You've been alone too long." "It feels strange," I admitted. "Starting something new at our age. Sometimes I wonder if I'm being foolish." "Foolish? For finding companionship and joy?" "Hardly." Eleanor's tone brooked no argument. "Life doesn't end at widowhood, Mabel, or at retirement, or at any arbitrary point we or society might designate. There's always the possibility of new beginnings." Her words echoed my own recent thoughts, reinforcing my determination to embrace this unexpected chapter. "You're right, of course. Now, about that dress. What are your options? Anything from your former life suitable for resurrection?" I described the few dresses I'd kept. A navy blue cocktail dress from a charity gala 3 years ago, a burgundy dress I'd worn for dinner with Louis's family, and a black velvet that had been perfect for symphony performances with Richard, but now hung loosely on my frame. "The navy could work with the right accessories," Eleanor mused. "But honestly, Mabel, why not treat yourself to something new? Something that reflects who you are now, not who you were then." The suggestion resonated. Wasn't that what this entire journey had been about? Shedding the old patterns, the old expectations, the old limitations, and stepping into a new version of myself? "You know what? You're absolutely right. I'm going shopping." Eleanor laughed. "That's my girl. Send pictures of whatever you choose." After hanging up, I checked the time. Just past 10. Plenty of time to visit the small but elegant boutique in the village center near Sunrise Meadows. I'd passed it several times during walks, admiring the window displays but never venturing inside. The boutique was quiet when I entered, just one other customer browsing scarves near the front. A stylish woman in her 60s approached with a warm smile. "Good morning, I'm Claire. Welcome to Timeless." "Thank you. I'm looking for a dress for a New Year's Eve dinner dance. Something festive, but not too youthful." I gestured vaguely at myself, suddenly aware of how long it had been since I'd shopped for anything other than practical, everyday clothing. Claire nodded understandingly. "Let's find something that makes you feel beautiful and confident." "Any color preferences?" I considered. I've always gravitated toward blues and burgundies, but I'm open to suggestions. "Let's start there and see where inspiration leads us," she said, guiding me toward a section of the store featuring evening wear appropriate for mature women. Elegant without being matronly, sophisticated without trying too hard for youth. Over the next hour, Claire helped me try on several options. A midnight blue sheath with subtle beading at the neckline, a deep purple wrap dress with a flattering drape, a champagne-colored gown with delicate embroidery. Each was lovely in its way, but none felt quite right for the occasion or the statement I wanted to make. Then Claire disappeared into the back room and returned with a dress I hadn't seen on the racks. An emerald green velvet with 3/4 sleeves, a modest V neckline, and a skirt that fell to mid-calf with a subtle flare. "We just received this yesterday," she explained. "I think the color would be stunning with your silver hair and complexion." The moment I slipped it on, I knew it was perfect. The velvet was luxurious without being heavy, the color vibrant and festive, the cut flattering to my figure without being inappropriately young or uncomfortably revealing. "Oh," I breathed, turning before the mirror. This is it. Claire nodded, satisfaction in her expression. It's as if it was made for you. Simple, elegant, confident. A statement piece without shouting. Now let's find the right accessories. By the time I left the boutique, I had not only the emerald dress but also silver heels with a modest height I could comfortably dance in, a delicate silver necklace with a small emerald pendant, and matching earrings. The ensemble cost more than I would have typically spent on clothing, but as I reminded myself while signing the credit card slip, I was no longer supporting two households. I could afford to invest in my own joy. Back at my apartment, I hung the dress carefully in my closet, already anticipating Louis's reaction when he saw me in it. There was something youthful and exciting about dressing up for a special evening with someone whose opinion mattered, whose admiration was desired. I hadn't felt this particular flutter of anticipation since early in my marriage, when Richard's appreciative glance could still make my heart race. The thought of Richard brought a moment of melancholy. Would he approve of this new development in my life? This relationship with Louis, still in its early stages but clearly moving toward something meaningful? As I put away the shoes and jewelry, I found myself speaking aloud to the empty room, to the ghost of my husband that sometimes still felt present in quiet moments. I think you would like him, Richard. He's kind and thoughtful, like you were. He makes me laugh. He listens, really listens, when I speak. I smiled slightly. He even appreciates my cooking, though he's no slouch in the kitchen himself. The melancholy faded as I continued the one-sided conversation, replaced by a sense of peaceful continuity. Richard would want me to be happy, to find companionship, to live fully for however many years remained to me. Just as I would have wanted the same for him, had our situations been reversed. On Saturday morning, I prepared for the rescheduled family Christmas celebration with a lighter heart than I'd anticipated. The exclusion from Christmas Day proper had stung initially, but the wonderful day with Louis had more than compensated. And now, with some emotional distance, I could approach this gathering with genuine enthusiasm rather than anxiety. I prepared a fresh apple pie, the one I'd made for Christmas having been enjoyed with Louis, and wrapped the children's gifts in festive paper. For Nathan and Vanessa, I'd selected a gift certificate to a well-regarded local restaurant, thinking they might appreciate an evening out together amid the chaos of family life and financial restructuring. Nathan arrived promptly at 1 o'clock, the children spilling from the car with excited energy despite the cold. They rushed to embrace me, chattering about Christmas presents, vacation activities, and their eagerness to see my new home. "Mom, you look great," Nathan said, hugging me after the children had dashed back to the car to retrieve wrapped packages. "Really great. There's something different about you." "Thank you," I said, pleased that he'd noticed. "I feel good." Sunrise. "Meadows agrees with you clearly." Vanessa appeared last, carrying a casserole dish. Her greeting was polite if not warm, progress from the ice of recent encounters. "I brought scalloped potatoes," she said. "The children mentioned they were a favorite of yours." "How thoughtful," I said, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Thank you, Vanessa." My apartment, while spacious for one person, felt cozily full with 6 people. The children immediately began exploring, exclaiming over the view from my windows, the built-in bookshelves, the small balcony currently frosted with snow. "This is like a hotel," Oliver declared, peering into the guest bathroom with its fluffy white towels and coordinated accessories. "A fancy one," Lily agreed, "and Grandma doesn't have to clean a whole big house anymore." "That's one of the advantages," I acknowledged, amused by their perspective. Lunch was pleasant, the conversation flowing more easily than I dared hope. The children dominated, of course, eager to share Christmas stories and school adventures. But even the interactions between Vanessa and me held less tension than before, as if the physical distance created by my move had somehow reduced the emotional friction between us. After the meal, we exchanged gifts. The children were delighted. with their presence, immediately wanting to use or play with each item. Nathan and Vanessa seemed genuinely appreciative of the restaurant gift certificate. "We haven't had a date night in ages," Vanessa admitted. "This is perfect." "That's what I thought," I said. "Everyone needs occasional adult time." Their gift to me was a digital photo frame, preloaded with family photographs spanning many years. Nathan as a child, Richard and me on various anniversaries, the grandchildren's births and birthdays, holiday gatherings, everyday moments captured and preserved. "There's room for thousands more," Nathan explained. "And you can set it to display randomly or in chronological order, whatever you prefer." "We thought it might make your new place feel more like home," Vanessa added, a note of genuine kindness in her voice that surprised me. "It's perfect," I said, truly moved by the thoughtfulness of the gift. "Thank you both." After dessert, the apple pie enthusiastically devoured by all, Nathan suggested we move on to the tour of Sunrise Meadows I'd promised. "The kids are dying to see this famous pool," he said with a smile. "Of course. Let me just grab my key card and we'll explore." The tour was a success. The children were suitably impressed by the various amenities, the library with its comfortable reading nooks, the game room with puzzles and board games available for residents and guests, the arts and crafts studio where several residents were working on various projects. But the indoor pool was, as predicted, the main attraction. Located in the wellness center, it featured a large main pool, a separate hot tub area for adults, and a small splash zone for younger children. Floor-to-ceiling windows provided views of the snow-covered grounds, creating a magical contrast between the warm, humid pool environment and the winter landscape outside. "Can we swim?" Jacob asked immediately, pressing his face against the glass separating the lobby area from the pool itself. "Not today, buddy," Nathan said. "We didn't bring suits or towels." "Actually," I intervened, "the guest suite includes swim access. There are loaner suits in various sizes, and towel service is provided." 4 hopeful faces turned to Nathan and Vanessa, who exchanged a glance that spoke volumes about their reluctance to extend the visit, but unwillingness to disappoint the children. "We really should head home soon," Vanessa said carefully. "We've taken up so much of Grandma's day already." "Nonsense," I said firmly. "I've been looking forward to this visit all week, and the pool is here specifically for residents and their families to enjoy together." I turned to the children. "Your parents can decide, of course, but you're welcome to swim if they approve." The chorus of pleas that followed was predictably effective. Nathan sighed in mock defeat. All right. 1 hour of swimming, then we need to head home." The children cheered, and even Vanessa's expression softened at their obvious joy. While Nathan took the children to find appropriate swimwear, Vanessa and I found seats in the observation area where parents and grandparents could watch swimmers without entering the pool area itself. We sat in silence for a few minutes, watching through the glass as Nathan helped the twins into loaner life vests, while Oliver and Lily raced each other to the deep end. "They're growing so fast," I observed, struck by how tall Oliver had become, how graceful Lily was in the water. Vanessa nodded. "Too fast. Sometimes I look at them and can't believe these are the same tiny babies we brought home from the hospital." "I felt the same way watching Nathan grow," I said. "One day they're completely dependent on you, the next they're independent beings with their own thoughts, opinions, personalities." "It's wonderful and terrifying simultaneously," Vanessa agreed. The shared sentiment, mother to mother rather, then mother-in-law to daughter-in-law, created a momentary bridge between us, a rare point of genuine connection. "Thank you," Vanessa said suddenly, her gaze still fixed on the children splashing in the pool. "For what?" "For not making this harder than it needed to be. The move, the financial changes, all of it." She turned to face me. "I know I haven't been particularly gracious about any of it." The admission startled me. I've tried to understand your perspective, I said carefully. Change is difficult for everyone. It is, and I resented it. Resented you for forcing it upon us. Her honesty was refreshing, if blunt. I liked our arrangement. It worked for us. For you, I corrected gently. It wasn't sustainable for me either financially or emotionally. She nodded slowly. I see that now. Or I'm beginning to, anyway. She gestured around the bright, well-appointed pool area. You seem different here. More yourself somehow. I feel more myself, I acknowledged. More centered, more purposeful. Nathan says you've made friends already, that you're involved in activities, clubs. Yes, it's been surprisingly easy to connect with people here. We're all in similar life stages with similar experiences. Vanessa was quiet for a moment, watching as Nathan hoisted Jacob onto his shoulders in the shallow end, the boy's delighted laughter audible even through the glass. I'm not ready to be friends, she said finally. I'm still adjusting to all of this. But I think we can be family. Real family, not just people who tolerate each other because of shared connections. The olive branch, offered with such straightforward honesty, moved me deeply. I'd like that, I said. Simply. She nodded once, decisively, then stood. I should go help Nathan with the twins. They're a handful in water. As she walked away, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders, a tension I hadn't fully acknowledged until it began to ease. The path forward with Vanessa would likely still have bumps and detours, but for the first time, I believed we might eventually reach a destination of mutual respect, if not warm affection. The family stayed longer than the promised hour, the children's enthusiasm for the pool proving impossible to curtail until they were physically exhausted. By the time we returned to my apartment to collect their belongings, the early winter darkness had fallen, and the lights of Sunrise Meadows glowed warmly against the night sky. This was fun, Grandma, Lily said, hugging me tightly as they prepared to leave. Can we come back next weekend and swim again? I looked to Nathan and Vanessa, not wanting to promise what might not be convenient for them. Maybe not next weekend, Nathan said diplomatically, but soon. We'll plan another visit. And you're always welcome to visit us, Vanessa added, surprising me. For dinner or whenever you'd like. Thank you, I said, understanding the significance of the invitation, so different from the grudging inclusion of recent months. I'd like that. After they left, I tidied the apartment, storing leftover pie in the refrigerator and washing dishes with a contented rhythm. The visit had gone better than I'd dared hope, with genuine moments of connection not just with Nathan and the children, but with Vanessa as well. Small steps, but meaningful ones, toward a healthier family dynamic. As I was finishing in the kitchen, my phone rang. Louis. Hello there, I answered, pleased to hear from him. How was your day? Productive. I finished that bookshelf I've been working on for Miranda's boys. How was your family celebration? Surprisingly lovely, I told him, settling into my favorite chair. Even Vanessa seemed to be making an effort. That's wonderful news, he said warmly. I'm glad it went well. The children adored the pool, of course. I think I've secured regular visits simply by virtue of having access to water. And loaner swimsuits, Louis laughed. A grandmother's secret weapon, very strategic. We chatted for a while longer, sharing the details of our respective days, discussing plans for the coming week, the easy conversation of two people growing increasingly comfortable with each other. About tomorrow night, Louis said eventually. The dinner dance. I thought I might pick you up around 7. The event begins at 7:30, but I'd like to arrive a bit early to secure a good table. 7 is perfect, I agreed. I'm looking forward to it. As am I. His voice softened. Very much so. After we hung up, I found myself smiling at the pleasant anticipation building for the following evening. New Year's Eve had never been a particularly significant holiday in our family. Richard and I had usually spent it quietly at home, perhaps watching the Times Square celebration on television but rarely staying awake until midnight. After his death, I'd continued the low-key tradition, often falling asleep well before the new year arrived. But tomorrow felt different, a genuine celebration, a marking of endings and beginnings, a threshold between past and future that seemed particularly meaningful this year. I spent much of Sunday preparing for the evening, a leisurely bath with scented oils, careful attention to hair and makeup, unhurried pleasure and dressing for a special occasion. The emerald dress fit perfectly, the color flattering against my silver hair and fair skin. The modest heels gave me just enough height without compromising comfort for dancing. The necklace and earrings added a touch of elegance without overwhelming. The simplicity of the dress. When Louis arrived at 7, his appreciative gaze was all the confirmation I needed that the effort had been worthwhile. "Mabel," he said, momentarily speechless as I opened the door. "You look absolutely stunning." "Thank you," I said, feeling a girlish pleasure at his obvious admiration. "You're quite handsome yourself." He was too, in a well-cut dark suit, with a tie that, by coincidence or design, complemented the green of my dress perfectly. "These are for you," he said, producing a small corsage of white roses and greenery. "I know it's a bit old-fashioned, but—" "It's lovely," I assured him, genuinely touched by the gesture. "Would you help me put it on?" He pinned the corsage carefully to my dress, his fingers steady and sure. The small intimacy of the moment, his nearness, the faint scent of his aftershave, the gentle brush of his hands, sent a pleasant shiver through me. "There," he said, stepping back to admire the effect. "Perfect." The dinner dance was held in the Sunrise Meadows ballroom, transformed for the occasion with twinkling lights, silver and gold decorations, and tables arranged around a wooden dance floor. A small jazz ensemble played softly as residents and guests arrived, the music providing a sophisticated backdrop to the growing hum of conversation. Louis, true to his word, had arrived early enough to secure an excellent table near the dance floor, but not so close as to make conversation difficult. We were joined by Marian and her husband Carl, and another couple, Dorothy, the former librarian I'd met at the welcome reception, and her husband George, a retired physician. The evening unfolded with elegant simplicity. A well-prepared dinner, good wine, excellent company. The conversation flowed easily, ranging from books to travel to gentle gossip about other residents. Throughout the meal, Louis's attentiveness was constant but unobtrusive, refilling my water glass, ensuring the chabai server knew my preferences, including me in conversations with a natural grace that made me feel both special and comfortable. After dinner, the jazz ensemble shifted to more danceable numbers, and couples began moving to the floor. Louis turned to me, extending his hand in invitation. "Would you do me the honor?" he asked, his eyes warm with affection. "I'd love to," I said, taking his hand. "Though I should warn you, it's been years since I've danced properly." "We'll take it slowly," he assured me. On the dance floor, he proved to be an excellent partner, confident without being overbearing, guiding without controlling, adapting to my initial hesitation until I found my rhythm. The music, a slow jazz standard, allowed for easy movement, and soon I was following his lead without conscious thought, simply enjoying the sensation of dancing in the arms of a man who held me with such evident care. "This is nice," I murmured as we moved together. I'd forgotten how much I enjoy dancing. "You're a natural," Louis said. "We should do this more often." We danced several numbers before returning to the table for a short rest. Marian winked at me over her champagne glass, her approval of Louis and me as a couple evident in her expression. Dorothy, too, smiled knowingly as Louis held my chair. "You two make a handsome pair," she said frankly. "It's lovely to see." I felt myself blush but didn't contradict her. It was lovely. this unexpected connection in what I had assumed would be a quieter, more solitary chapter of my life. As midnight approached, the atmosphere in the ballroom grew increasingly festive. Champagne was distributed for the traditional. Toast, party hats, and noisemakers appeared at each place setting, and the band prepared for the countdown. I haven't stayed awake until midnight on New Year's Eve in years, I confessed to Louis as we stood together, champagne glasses in hand, watching the large clock at the end of the ballroom. Neither have I, he admitted. But this year seems worth celebrating properly, don't you think? The countdown began at 10 seconds to midnight, the entire room joining in the familiar ritual. As the clock struck 12 and cheers erupted around us, Louis leaned in and kissed me, a proper kiss, warm and sweet and full of promise. "Happy New Year, Mabel," he said softly when we parted. "Happy New Year, Louis," I replied, feeling as if, in many ways, my life was truly beginning anew. The party continued for another hour, with dancing and champagne and the sharing of resolutions and hopes for the coming year. By the time Louis walked me back to my apartment, it was well past 1 in the morning, yet I felt energized rather than exhausted. At my door, he kissed me again, lingering a bit longer this time. "I had a wonderful evening," he said. "So did I assured him. "Thank you for being my escort." The pleasure was entirely mine. He hesitated, then added, "I was wondering, would you be free for dinner on Thursday? There's a new Mediterranean restaurant in town I thought we might try." "I'd love that," I said. After he left, I moved through my nighttime routine with a lightness in my step, still humming one of the jazz standards we'd danced to. As I removed my makeup and jewelry, I caught sight of myself in the bathroom mirror, cheeks flushed, eyes bright, a smile playing at the corners of my mouth. The woman reflected there was both familiar and new, the same Mabel who had raised a son, loved a husband, tended a garden, baked countless pies, but also a Mabel who was rediscovering parts of herself long dormant. A Mabel who danced past midnight on New Year's Eve, who bought emerald dresses, who accepted corsages and kisses from a kind, attentive man. A Mabel who was no longer defined primarily by her relationships to others, mother, grandmother, widow, but increasingly by her own choices, preferences, and joys. As I slipped into bed, my phone chimed with a text. "Louis, thank you for a magical evening. Sweet dreams." I smiled as I typed back, "Thank you for making it magical. Good night." Setting the phone aside, I closed my eyes, feeling a profound sense of gratitude wash over me. Who would have thought, when Vanessa's text, banning me from Thanksgiving, had arrived just weeks ago, that it would set in motion such transformative changes, that the hurt and anger I'd felt then would lead indirectly but inevitably to this moment of contentment and anticipation? The journey wasn't complete, of course. There would still be adjustments with Nathan and his family, still moments of friction as we all adapted to our new dynamics. My relationship with Louis was still in its early stages, with all the uncertainty that entailed. My life at Sunrise Meadows was just beginning, with friendships to deepen and routines to establish. But for the first time in longer than I cared to admit, I was looking forward rather than back, anticipating rather than remembering, creating rather than merely maintaining. I had canceled those car payments, and in doing so, had purchased something far more valuable than any vehicle, my independence, my self-respect, my future. It was, I reflected as sleep began to claim me, the best investment I had ever made. As winter melted into spring, my life at Sunrise Meadows blossomed alongside the community gardens. I joined the gardening committee, securing 2 small plots, one for vegetables, one for flowers, and spent pleasant hours with fellow enthusiasts planning our growing season. The charm bracelet Louis had given me for Christmas, with its single gardening trowel charm, gained companions, a tiny watering can for my birthday in February, a miniature book when I joined the literary discussion group, a chef's hat when I began teaching monthly Thai cooking classes in the community kitchen. Each charm represented not just a gift from Louis, but a marker of my expanding life. New interests explored, new skills developed, new connections formed. Our relationship deepened with natural ease, neither rushed nor hesitant. We established comfortable routines, Sunday brunches at local cafes, Wednesday evening concerts or films, Saturday morning farmers market visits, while still leaving room for spontaneity and individual pursuits. "You're good for each other," Marian observed one afternoon during French conversation group. "I haven't seen Louis this happy since before Sophia died." "He makes me happy too," I admitted, still sometimes surprised by this unexpected chapter in my life. "C'est l'amour," Marian said with a knowing smile. "Don't overthink it. Just enjoy." And I did enjoy it. The companionship, the shared interests, the physical closeness that had gradually developed between us. At 73, I had discovered that desire didn't disappear with age, merely transformed, becoming less urgent. Perhaps, but no less meaningful. My relationship with Nathan and his family evolved as well, finding a new equilibrium based on mutual respect rather than one-sided accommodation. The children visited Sunrise Meadows monthly, drawn initially by the pool but gradually developing appreciation for other aspects of my new community. Oliver discovered chess matches with residents who had played for decades and were delighted to share their knowledge. Lily joined art classes in the studio, her talent flourishing under the guidance of a retired art teacher. Even the twins found their niches, Jacob in the woodworking shop where he learned to make simple birdhouses, Emma in the community gardens where she proudly tended her own small patch of sunflowers. Nathan and Vanessa adjusted to their new financial reality with varying degrees of grace. Nathan embraced the challenge, finding creative ways to reduce expenses without sacrificing what truly mattered to the family. Vanessa struggled more with the lifestyle changes, particularly the children's transition to public school. But even she gradually discovered unexpected benefits in simplification. "The kids seem happier," she admitted during a rare moment of candor when she dropped Lily off for an art class one Saturday. "Less scheduled, less pressured, more like kids and less like tiny professionals managing calendars." "Children are remarkably adaptable," I observed, "often more so than adults." She nodded, absently watching Lily join the art instructor across the courtyard. "I'm trying to be more adaptable myself. It doesn't come naturally." "Growth rarely does," I said gently. Our relationship remained cordial rather than warm, but the sharp edges had softened, the battlefield of our earlier interactions largely demilitarized. We would never be close friends, but we had learned to exist peacefully in each other's orbits, connected by our mutual love for Nathan and the children. In April, Louis invited me to accompany him to Chicago for a long weekend, to visit Miranda and her family and attend a piano recital where several of her students would be performing. "Are you sure?" I asked, both pleased and slightly nervous about the invitation. "It seems like a family occasion." "You're important to me," he said, simply. "I'd like you to be there." The trip was a delight from beginning to end. Miranda and Elena welcomed me warmly into their beautiful brownstone, the twins immediately demanding Ms. Mabel read them stories and admire their latest artistic creations. The recital showcased Miranda's talents as a teacher, her students, ranging from serious-faced 6-year-olds to accomplished teenagers considering music conservatories. On our final evening, after the children were in bed, the adults lingered over coffee in Miranda and Elena's cozy living room. "Dad seems happier than I've seen him in years," Miranda said, her gaze moving affectionately between Louis and me. "We have you to thank for that, Mabel." "The happiness goes both ways," I assured her. "Will you come back with him in July?" Elena asked. "For the boys' birthday? They'd be thrilled to have you here." The casual invitation, extending months into the future, assuming a continuing relationship, touched me deeply. I'd love to, if Louis wants me to join him. Of course I do, he said, squeezing my hand gently. Later in the guest room we shared, Louis took something from his suitcase, a small velvet box that immediately sent my heart racing. This isn't a proposal, he said quickly, noting my expression. At least not in the traditional sense. At our age, marriage seems an unnecessary complication. He opened the box to reveal a beautiful sapphire ring, its deep blue stone flanked by small diamonds in an antique setting. This was my grandmother's, he explained. It's been in our family for generations. He took my hand. Mabel, these past months have been the happiest I've known since losing Sophia. You've brought joy, companionship, and purpose back into my life when I thought those things might be behind me. Louis, I began, emotion tightening my throat. Please, let me finish. He took a deep breath. I'm not asking you to change your name or combine our finances or any of those practical considerations, but I am asking for a commitment. To continue building this life we've begun together, to be partners in whatever time we have left. He held out the ring. This is a symbol of that commitment, if you want it. If you're not ready, I understand. Completely. I looked at the beautiful ring, then at the equally beautiful man offering it, his kind eyes anxious yet hopeful, his hands steady despite the magnitude of the moment. In that instant, I knew with absolute certainty that this was right, that this unexpected gift of a second love in my later years was not to be questioned or doubted, but embraced with gratitude and joy. Yes, I said simply. Yes to all of it. His relief was palpable as he slipped the ring onto my finger, where it sat as if it had always belonged there. We sealed the moment with a kiss that held all the tenderness, passion, and promise that words could not adequately express. The next morning at breakfast, Miranda noticed the ring immediately, her delighted squeal bringing Elena running from the kitchen. It's not exactly an engagement, Louis explained, somewhat flustered by their excitement. More a commitment to our relationship as it is. It's beautiful, Elena said, examining the ring on my finger. And perfectly suited to you, Mabel. Is Miss Mabel going to be our grandma now? Alex asked, looking up from his cereal with interest. The adults exchanged glances, momentarily uncertain how to explain the nuances of late-life relationships to a 5-year-old. Ms. Mabel is very special to Grandpa, Miranda said carefully, and to all of us. She's part of our family now, though in a different way than I'm your mommy or Mama Elena is. The child considered this, then nodded with the easy acceptance of the young. Okay, can she come to our birthday party? Yes, Louis and I said, in unison, then laughed at our synchronicity. On the flight back to Minnesota, I found myself absently turning the sapphire ring on my finger, still adjusting to its presence and all it represented. Having second thoughts? Louis asked, noticing the gesture. Not at all, I assured him. Just marveling at how unpredictable life can be. A year ago, I was trapped in patterns that were slowly draining me. Now here I am, wearing your grandmother's ring, planning summer trips, building a life I couldn't have imagined. He smiled, taking my hand. From what you've told me, you created this new reality through your own courage. You recognized that the status quo was unsustainable and took steps to change it, despite resistance. I canceled some car payments, I said with a self-deprecating laugh, hardly a revolutionary act. But it was in its way. You reclaimed resources, financial and emotional, that were being drained without reciprocity. You established boundaries where none had existed. You prioritized your own well-being after decades of putting others first. Put that way, it did sound braver than I'd felt at the time. I suppose we find courage in unexpected moments. And unexpected rewards, he added, lifting my hand to kiss the ring. Telling Nathan about the ring, and what it represented, was a conversation I approached with some trepidation. We arranged to meet for lunch at a cafe near his office, just the two of us, on a Tuesday when I knew his schedule was relatively light. "You seem nervous, Mom," he observed after we'd ordered. "Everything okay?" I took a deep breath. "I have some news to share, and I'm not entirely sure how you'll receive it." His expression shifted to concern. "Is it health-related? Have the doctors found something?" "No, nothing like that," I assured him quickly. "I'm perfectly healthy. It's actually good news. At least, I consider it good news." I extended my left hand across the table, where the sapphire caught the light. Nathan stared at it for a long moment, comprehension dawning slowly. "You're engaged?" "Not in the traditional sense," I explained, echoing Lewis's words from the night he'd given me the ring. "But yes, I've entered into a committed relationship with someone, a man I've grown very close to over these past months." Nathan's expression was unreadable. "Who is he? How did you meet? Why haven't you mentioned him before?" I answered his questions patiently, telling him about Lewis, our meeting at the community center, our growing connection, his family in Chicago. As I spoke, I watched my son's face carefully, trying to gauge his reaction. "So this is serious," he said finally. "Not just companionship." "It's both," I said. "Serious companionship, partnership, a shared life for however long we have." Nathan was quiet for a moment, absorbing this information. Then, to my surprise, he smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "You deserve this, Mom. After everything, raising me alone after Dad died, supporting us all those years, you deserve happiness." Relief washed over me. "Thank you, Nathan. Your blessing means a great deal to me. Do I get to meet him? This Louie who swept my mother off her feet?" "Of course. In fact, I was hoping you and the family might join us for dinner next weekend. Louie is an excellent cook. He's planning a special meal." Nathan agreed readily, and as our lunch continued, the conversation shifted to other topics: the children's activities, his work challenges, Vanessa's recent decision to return to part-time teaching now that the twins were in school full-time. When we parted, Nathan hugged me tightly. "I'm happy for you, Mom. Really happy." "Thank you, son," I said, blinking back unexpected tears. The dinner the following weekend went remarkably well. Louie and Nathan discovered shared interests in history and woodworking. The children were initially shy but quickly warmed to Louie when he showed them the train set he was building for his grandsons and invited them to help position miniature trees and buildings. Even Vanessa made a genuine effort, complimenting Lewis's cooking and asking thoughtful questions about his teaching career. As spring deepened into summer, Lewis and I fell into comfortable patterns of togetherness while maintaining our individual interests and activities. We spent most nights together, either at his condominium or my apartment, but kept both residences. Practical considerations of storage space and occasional private time outweighing any romantic notions of officially moving in together. In July, we traveled to Chicago for the twins' birthday as promised, bringing handcrafted gifts, a jewelry box Louie had made for Alex, who collected interesting stones and shells, and a custom-designed tote bag I'd sewn for Zach, with pockets sized perfectly for his beloved action figures. "They adore you both," Miranda said, as we watched the boys showing off their gifts to friends at the birthday party. "Almost as much as we do." In August, Nathan and family visited us at Sunrise Meadows for a weekend, staying in the guest suite and enjoying the pool, gardens, and activities available to residents and their families. It was during this visit that Oliver, now 12 and increasingly perceptive, asked the question that had perhaps been on Nathan's mind as well. "Grandma," he said as we walked the garden paths, examining the summer blooms, "are you and Mr. Lewis going to get married?" I considered how to answer. We've committed to spending our lives together, I said. But at our age, a legal marriage doesn't seem necessary. Oliver nodded thoughtfully. Dad says you seem really happy now, different than before. I am happy, I confirmed. Very much so. Good, he said decisively. You deserve to be happy. Grandma. Everyone does. The simple wisdom from my grandson's mouth brought a lump to my throat. Thank you, Oliver. That means a lot to me. As summer faded into autumn, I found myself reflecting on the extraordinary journey of the past year. From that moment when Vanessa's text arrived, banning me from Thanksgiving dinner, to now, wearing Louis's ring, planning a trip to Europe. In the spring, teaching cooking classes, tending my gardens, enjoying my grandchildren on healthier terms, connecting with friends old and new. The catalyst for all of it had been a simple, pragmatic decision. Canceling those car payments I'd been making month after month, year after year, with no end in sight and no reciprocity. It seemed almost absurd that such a mundane financial transaction could set in motion such profound life changes. Yet it had required all my courage to take that first step, to acknowledge my own needs, to establish boundaries, to risk disapproval and conflict after decades of compliance and accommodation. Penny for your thoughts, Louis said, joining me on the balcony where I stood watching the sunset paint the autumn landscape in fiery hues. I was just thinking about beginnings, I said, leaning into him as his arm slipped around my waist. How they sometimes disguise themselves as endings. He nodded, understanding without needing further explanation. The best chapters often start that way. As twilight deepened around us, I felt a profound sense of gratitude wash over me, for the challenges that had forced me to grow, for the courage I'd found when it was needed most, for the unexpected joy that had emerged from what had initially felt like rejection and loss. When my daughter-in-law banned me from Thanksgiving dinner, I canceled their car payments I'd been making. But what I really did was reclaim my life, my independence, my future. And that, I realized as Louis and I stood together watching day transform into evening, was the most valuable payment of all. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.